Welcome guys, today we'll have an advanced hatchery guide for TemTem. As you can see, I have managed to hatch a few pretty good TemTems. This one has, almost everything green stats, and Alcinia doesn't need attack because she's more in favor with special attack. So we have really good speed, really good special attack, and one max spell. So there's a few good ones. I also made Anissa, and this one has really solid stats. The defense is low, but speed is really high as well. Attack is okay, special attack is okay as well. And this is the startup one, the tower. I also made a Genki. This Genki have slightly low stamina and defense, but pretty high stats overall. So what this guide is going to do is it's going to share things in two ways. How do you try to find a high stats TemTem, and how do you nurture them? And there's an advanced nurture guide as well. How do you make pretty much all stats to 50? I theory crafted. It has a bit of RNG components to it, but I'll go through that with you guys as well. So two parts. The first part is how do you create the ones I'm having right now. So one thing to focus is if you have a female, which is represented by this kind of straight sign, this is a male. So if you look at the gender sign, the male and the female can combine pretty nicely. What I start to do is I start to catch lots of female on the ones I want to hatch, and I want them to have as many green stats as possible. And for example, this one has really good speed. I'm looking for attack for this one, really decent stats. So with those female combinations, once I catch them, and sometimes I nurture them into the female, once I have that, I will be looking for a male of any kind that matches their elements. Here I need water, so our little duck here is a water one. Other than that, Nessa is really good to combine water and electric, so I'm looking for male units that combines into them. And this is the startup. Once you have the male, what you want to do is you want to be spending about 300 to 600 gold per hatchery. So this is the minimum spending. I think it's really worth it, because this guarantees you have two of the best stats from the TemTems, from the mother and the father. Oh sorry, yeah, that's right, from both genders. So I'll give you guys an example. So I bought a couple, so I'm gonna pick this one. Now this one doesn't breed anymore. My units doesn't breed anymore because I breed most of them out. So let's do this again. So I'm gonna pick one that breeds. Yeah, those two are maxed out. They don't breed anymore, unfortunately. This one doesn't breed, so we made a few good ones. He still breeds, right? Yeah, he still breeds. So what I want to show you guys is where to use your particular item and what item to use when you are matching the male and female. So I'm looking at two water one. It's gonna hatch into a Alcinia, the little water horse, because the female is the one that we're going to. So here, this is what you see. You look at these stats, you're like, hey, this is pretty good. I want this kind of stats. Yes, we do. But what you want to focus is you want to look at the lower stats on the mother and the lower stats on the father. Here, the higher stats is special defense and speed. The speed here is kind of okay. So it will be a really downfall if we get 426. So we want to guarantee the speed here. We're going to buy the 300 item to guarantee we have the special defense here. And this makes this to be fixed. After that, we look at the father here. We'll look at the duck here. What is the stats that we don't really want to lose out? If you favor the special attack, you can lock into special attack. If you favor something else, HP, you can lock into that. So you lock two stats, you let the rest of them roll. And this way, by combining them multiple times, even by combining with offspring, each time you spend 600 for it, eventually it costs you about, 2,000 to 3,000 after several hatcheries. Once you get a hang of it, you realize that some of the stats like those attack you can ignore because they are really high by themselves already. You don't have to worry about attack or defense. Then you just focus on HP, stamina, special attack, and special defense, or maybe speed. All of a sudden you have less things to lock in, and as you use more of them, the stronger they become. After trying it out, I think about 2,000 to 3,000 gold, you can make a pretty decent stats with pretty much all green. And this is how I made my initial bunch. Now the next part of the guide, we're gonna look at how to make everything to 50. So let's switch over here. So this is an Excel I made. This is not the most detailed Excel, and I don't think this explains things that well. It's just an Excel I made at night, and I was like, okay, there's a way we can make all the stats to 50. How do I do it? A friend of mine told me someone did it. I want to really logically explain how you make all stats to 50, and I will try to explain as detailed as I can. Hopefully you guys can understand. If you don't, ask me in the comments below. I'll be testing this out as well, but it does require quite a bit of resource in terms of gold and money. So let's go through this. Firstly, you can find a single unit, the mother or the father, with a high stats just by 1. So if you find an individual TemTem with stats you want above 45 or 47, likely 50 will be the best one, you keep it. So this is the first generation. We call it 8F. That means it's got 8 fertility because it hasn't hatched anything yet. After that, you can find a mother and a father with 50. So just need one for HB, one for STA. And if you find that, if you hatch them, and by locking HB and STA, you lock them for guaranteed 50-50, and this offspring, the baby itself, will have 7 fertility. So this is the 7F here to indicate it's got 7 fertility. And similarly, you can find one with max attack and max special attack and lock for those, and this one will have 7 fertility. And this one will have 7 fertility for defense and special defense. All of a sudden you have 8 fertility and 7 fertility offspring. We call it A over here, we call it A, we call it B here, C and D. If we hatch A and B together by locking speed and HP and STA, it's a little costly. Yes, this is 300, this is 1000. So by locking those, you will create an offspring called E, which will stay with 6 fertility and will have 50, 50, and 50. So you lock for 350 now. And followed by that, the same logic flows if you're going to make offspring with B and C. Keep in mind, B has already made offspring, so B is likely going to be on 6 fertility. And with 6 fertility with C here, you will be looking at a lock of HP and STA and attack and special attack. So you have those locked in. And at this point, the logic will continue to flow throughout the whole matchup for the TemTems, and eventually you will merge into something with overlapping stats. And that is the key. Once you overlap them, you can lock for the ones that's not overlapped and keep the ones you want. But there's a big factor in terms of randomness in this logical Excel for hatching and for mating. It's that you need a male and a female at the same time. It does not work if the offspring is a male and the other offspring is a male. So if B and C is both male and female, this collides and this doesn't work. So that will reduce its offspring cycle. You have to try to make a female out of it, and similarly you have to try to make a male out of it. What I recommend is to have as many offsprings with 2 lock stats for male and both female. It's easy to go with male because male can take any particular matchup. So if you're going for water TemTems, and if we come back here, if I'm going for water TemTems, any of the water ones that's not Osaka can work. The Nasa can work, the duck can work. The duck can work, any of the water TemTem can work. But if you're going for the mother, you ideally have to have the TemTems you want to match. So that's very important. You have to have the mother that's matching. Mother is more required. The father is just here for the stats boost. So the same logic is going to flow again. And this time the fertility is more rendered. Here what we're demonstrating is a perfect fertility matchup. So we have the perfect father and mother ready. And this will give us, so you have A plus B. Here you have B plus C. And basically each time we plus them, we lock for the 2 stats now. This item that lock for 2 stats, this allows us to create lots of TemTems with 3 or 4 50 maximum stats. And of course, if you remember earlier, we started the stats matching just with TemTems only having 1 max or high stat, and that is workable. Keep in mind, it's quite costly by doing this because each time you're basically breeding, you're spending at least 1,300 or 2,000 gold for those little hatcheries. So just single-handedly by mating the 4 stats and 3 stat locked in with 2 perfection, you spend about 10,000 gold or 12,000 gold here. This is an indication. This is 1,800. And now, if you have the TemTems with 3 fixed stats ready, likely you won't have them at 4 fertility because it's harder to find the mother and the father. Likely you'll be around 2 to 3 fertility. But this is when you can combine those 2. Here I'm combining E and F here. So here we combine E and F. So into a maximum 4 fertility TemTem, and this TemTem will have everything except special defense. Similarly, the TemTem here will be combined with E and G. E and G will be over here because E has the highest fertility. E and G combined will have a bit of random because those are not locked. Everything else will be locked. Similarly, we have K, which will combine G and H, and E and H. Very quickly, you realize there's a lot of overlapping at this stage. If you're lucky enough with the male and female TemTem, ideally you should still have 2 to 3 fertility, or even 1 fertility left. This is when you can combine the final TemTems of those kind from I to L into a TemTem with maximum fertility. And if you do that, likely you have all the stats maxed out. If you're fortunate enough to have a maxed out TemTem with still 1 fertility left, you can combine those two to lock in for a trait, which will be the final part of the matchup. So hopefully you guys see what I'm trying to highlight here. And hey there, Master, thank you so much for the host. So what I'm trying to say is, for the TemTems, we are adjusting them to make the strongest TemTem we can, and the only factor that is random and RNG for this TemTem is that we cannot control if the offspring is a male or female. Ideally, with enough TemTems around, we can have enough male and female to make the perfect TemTem with all 50 stats. And yes, the TemTems demonstrated here have the highest potential fertility with 6 and 5. Those are the highest ones you can achieve at this stage. Of course, you can be lucky earlier to get this higher, which would be great. So let me know what you guys think. And I did calculate how much a perfect TemTem will cost. It will cost about anyway to 20 to 30,000 gold. And if it's 30,000 gold, you can actually make maybe 1 or 2 perfect TemTem. So if you're working with friends, if you're combining them together, it's actually a pretty good idea. Eventually, you have several offspring with some really good stats. Some TemTem don't need attack, so you don't have to lock for both attack or special attack, and vice versa. Some TemTem don't need special attack, they just need attack. And if that's the case, you don't have to spend 1,000 gold, spend 300 for the locking just 1 attack. But usually you do want speed, you want HP and STA, you also want both defense. So overall, let me know what you guys think. Hey guys, yes, this is a little bonus part which I was just reading through Reddit, and someone has managed to summarize this breeding program into something that's more visual, and it's very nice of them. This guide is made by Nicoplanik and also Dazzle on Reddit. I'll attach the Reddit link and all credits goes to them, of course. I did come up with a similar idea, but I was not able to demonstrate it visually as good as this one, so definitely check it out. And just quickly to summarize, he's using similar logic as I was doing, so he's making some tier 2 with 2 perfect DNA, and he went further with the speed by using speed as a branch. Here there is also a concern which I was having, is that you cannot guarantee the ones you're fusing is both a male and a female. If that is not the case, then you can't proceed with making the perfect one. So you might have to repeat a few times in order to have the male and females kind of like merging together, and that'll make the difference. So what I think we can do is, if the male and male, if that's a female, that's perfect. Otherwise, if it's male, male, or female, female, that's a male, that's okay as well. So ideally, you do want to start with more females, and hopefully you get more females. And male is more versatile because you can combine other ones into males and add it onto it. So aim for more females, and hopefully you get more females out of it. It is 50-50 as you go. And the perfect breeding here, if you quickly read it through, it's the same logic but visually summarized it. And if he looks at the cost of the TemTem to fuse, it does cost about 10,000 to 1.7k or 17,000. It is similar to what I was looking at, but I was looking at making more of them. So my method, I think I'll make at least 2 or 3 if possible. He will be making at least 1 of them. So here he also explains how to trade breed as well. So it's surprising. I was just about to post a video and I saw this. So I was like, okay, I made the video, I might as well post it in case you guys like Excel. And if it's a visual summary, this also summarizes very nicely. So one thing to keep in mind, and I think he also mentioned here, if you don't need the attack of something, you don't have to maintain the attack, or you don't have to maintain a particular stats unless you really need it. This will reduce the cost of the breeding. And lastly, it is random as well if you get a female and male. I keep referring that because this visualizing is not as perfect as we would hope so, because those two might be both female or they might be both male. Then you're stuck, you're like, okay, what do I do? But they can still be useful in other fusions. So keep in mind, if you're going for water, you can get more water after. And you can go for water male or water female into the other breeding. So this can always be useful. Hopefully you guys find it helpful, and I'll be on the lookout for more guides and tips for TemTem to come. Thank you guys.